Today's talk is titled The Oneness and Likeness of All Religions, to be delivered by Dwight Durand. Dwight was born into a Christian family, practicing the Episcopalian faith, having spent much of his growing up years in foster homes and orphanages. He became familiar with many other faiths and their beliefs and practices, noticing that many of their differences and dislikes. After many adult years of searching, he became a Baha'i in October of 1980 at the age of 37. Dwight has been practicing and deepening the Baha'i writings for over 43 years. Dwight.
Bring my jug with me in case I get dry.
That's right. There you go.
Well, hello, everyone. I must say that I'm very pleased with this little community of the Unitarian Church. I wasn't sure what to expect. My wife has, and sister-in-law have, get this a little bit closer, have had aunts, two that I'm aware of, and some other relatives that were Unitarians. And I always liked them. They had good attitudes, open minds, and I can see that that's the case here. So I feel very comfortable talking with you today. First of all, I wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers here. Mothers are important, and that's why we celebrate Mother's Day. Mothers are important not just because you brought us into this world, but you're important because you've probably been the closest bond that we've had in our growing years. I'd like to, God bless my mother, who's in heaven. She passed away when I was 12, and so I went to foster homes. A lot of times while she was alive, I would go to a foster home because she'd be hospitalized for long periods of time and long recuperating periods of time. So I spent the time in foster homes. And of course, in those foster homes, I went to whatever church they were worshiping. So I went to Lutherans and Baptists and Catholics. And, I learned that the exclusivity that each of those faiths had, it's like, if you're not Catholic, you're not going to go to heaven. Well, what about all the Buddhists, and what about all the Hindus, and what about all the Protestants and all the other people? Aren't they going to go to heaven? Is God going to forget them? I don't think so. I think that he loves us all. He created us all. When you create something, usually you love it, right? So I think that opened my mind to becoming a Baha'i when I started hearing the principles of the faith. And they're not a lot different than your own principles, Equality of men and women. Equality of all the religions. All the religions are one. And those are the type of philosophies that we believe in as Baha'is. So happy Mother's Day to the mothers. And Baha'u'llah wrote two things about women, two principles that pertain to women that would eventually pertain to wives. The first one is about marriage. Marriage is like a bird. The bird can only fly if the wings are equal in power. If one wing is stronger than the other, it's going to go off in that direction or that direction. So that's a very important principle. The equality of men and women in the marriage, equal. And then he also had one on education for girls. Baha'u'llah said, if you have two children and you can only send one to college, send the woman. Traditionally, it's been the man, right? The man's always gone to college. The man's always been put in the positions of control. But he says, no, you send the woman to college because she is the first to raise the child. She's the closest to the child when the child is born. She gives the child the values, the education on the world, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's why if you have two children, you can only educate one, educate your daughter. It's important. Karen and I are both Baha'is, and I'm here today to hopefully help you to understand a little bit more about who the Baha'is are, what the Baha'i faith is. It's the most recent of the world-embracing religions. We are an independent religion. We are not Christian. We are not Muslim. We are an independent faith. And I'll get to how that all works in a few minutes. But that's who we are. And do we believe in Christ? Yes. Do we believe that Christ was of God and had value? Yes. Same thing about Muhammad. Same thing about Moses. Same thing about Buddha. God sends his messengers to earth to guide us. You know, we have a tendency to forget things. We have a tendency to forget what the great values are. And I think you can look around you today and see how that works, right? So we're in the midst of a change right now. The earth has been split by the coming of Baha'u'llah. The earth has been shaken up. Every rock and every pebble has been shaken up by the coming of Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of our faith. Baha'u'llah is like our Christ or our Moses. Baha'u'llah is the founder of our faith. We don't have clergy, so you're going to have to learn about the faith through my understanding. I've been a Baha'i for 43, almost 44 years, so I believe that I've gained some knowledge, and I'm going to pass that knowledge on to you. We don't have clergy because it's not necessary. We all can read. We all can write. We all can get the verses of God, study them, talk to other people about them, and we can understand what's happening. We don't need someone to interpret it as the Bible's been interpreted by Christians, or the Bhagavad Gita, or the book of Moses. So be thankful. Baha'u'llah, the faith started in 1844 by a man named the Bab. And the Bab is B-A-B, and in Arabic it means the gate. We had the Muslim dispensation, and it was the latest dispensation at that time. So the Bab had to close the gate on that dispensation. We look at that dispensation as being the last dispensation of the prophetic cycle of the Bible. All the prophecies have been made. All the prophecies have come forward. That is the closing of that part of the religions of God. He opened up the gate of fulfillment. We're in the age of fulfillment. We're in the age in which man will mature, the age in which man will quit fighting each other. It's going to take time. We probably won't see it, but we've seen a lot of changes. You know, we've seen 2 great world wars. People start to understand how devastating it can be to go out and fight. Understandably, there's still fights going on today, but it's like a teenager. A teenager is fighting all the time, this process of growing up and maturing, because he doesn't understand really what's going to happen in the next phase. So he's fighting getting there. He wants to stay where he's at. He wants to have fun where he's at, whatever. And that's kind of the stage that the earth, all of humanity, is in right now. In our faith, because we don't have clergies, we obviously have to have leaders of some type. We have to have guidance. Otherwise, we'd be going in 50, 100 different directions. So we have elections. You have elections, right? We have 3 segments of our faith. We have a local spiritual assembly. A local spiritual assembly is 9 people that have been elected by the local Baha'is. So in Cambria, if they have 9 members, they would have a local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Cambria. Once a year, they elect those officers. They help to guide and even settle issues with the Baha'is of the local community. The next level would be our national spiritual assembly. The National Spiritual Assembly is like the local, but on a national level. Every year we have elections. We elect delegates. The delegates go to Wilmette, Illinois, which is north of Chicago. That's where our Mother Temple is. and that's where the National Spiritual Assembly resides. So they go there and they elect a National Spiritual Assembly. That National Spiritual Assembly then guides the Baha'is of, in this case, the United States. Every country has one, even if it's an island country. Hawaii has its own, Alaska has its own, and the continental United States has its. Those are the National Spiritual Assembly, excuse me. Then on top of everything, we have what we call the Universal House of Justice. And the Universal House of Justice is just that. It's there to provide justice for the earth. Baha'u'llah said the most important virtue is justice. Without justice, none of the others work. And that's what's important in our laws, in our courts, is to bring about justice. But justice is a much broader thing. Baha'u'llah said that out of justice should come unity. People should be thinking not exactly alike, but on the same plane. So the Universal House of Justice, and that election is every 5 years. So every 5 years, the national assemblies of all the countries in the world get together in Haifa, Israel. We have our faith center in Haifa, Israel, on Mount Carmel, which is interpreted as the mountain of God. Isaiah has a cave there. We've been to it. So it's been traditionally through the various religions, Haifa. So they have that election, and then those folks are the ones that guide the world of the Baha'is. They look, interpret, pray, and they have a staff of people that are bilingual that can interpret from the Arabic and from the Farsi the words of Baha'u'llah. What did he mean? What is he saying? And he's pretty clear. He's very clear. There's hundreds of books with the words of Baha'u'llah. You can go to books like the Gleanings. Those are all things that Baha'u'llah had written on tablets or had said that are put into that book of Gleanings. That one reading about the Jews, kill me, that was all written from writings of Baha'u'llah. So we get it, well, let's just say this way. He says that when mankind gets into a certain position of sickness, they need a spiritual guide, a spiritual doctor to come, and that doctor knows what the issues are. That doctor knows what the problems are, and he's going to solve those issues. He's going to give you the answers to solve those. Obviously, we have to do it ourselves, and we're still in the process of learning that. That, we're a little bit thick-headed sometimes. So some people don't like change. Change is, something in the human element, whether it's politics, whether it's family, whatever it is, they like it the way it is. They don't want to change. So many people just stay with their family's religion. Well, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, going back generations have all been Christians. Why would I want to change? Well, we know why, because we need to change sometimes to correct the environment of the earth. And some people are seekers. They seek for the absolute truth. So they don't just accept what's been given to them. They go out and they seek. They see, is there anything different? Is there anything better? Is there anything that I believe would help us as humankind than what I'm doing right now? And I think that many seekers will stay where they are because they'll think, no, what I have is good. And that's fine because they, with their own brains, seeked it out. They didn't listen to someone else and do what someone else said to do. Some people then say, hey, that's better. I like that better. And I'm sure many Unitarians are that way. You were maybe raised another faith and you became a Unitarian because you felt that it had a higher truth. And Many Baha'is are that way. Baha'u'llah taught us that there are three onenesses. The oneness of God. There's only one God. There's not 50 million gods. There's one God, and that one God has sent what we call manifestations to earth. A manifestation is a manifestation of God's divinity. So when you read the words of Jesus Christ, when you read the words of Muhammad, when you read the words of Baha'u'llah, those are words that God sent through them to us, to guide us. He doesn't forget us. He's guided us ever since the beginning of time. Many of those prophets we don't know about. They were too long ago. It was before writing or whatever. But they always come here to guide us. So Baha'u'llah was sent to guide us from that one God. Then there's one religion, the religion of God. It's the ever advancing religion of God. So you are as much a part of God as I am as much a part of God. We all have the teachings of God that we're following. He teaches us to be kind. He teaches us to respect our neighbors. He teaches us not to steal. These are things that come down from 3,000 years ago, and they're still applicable today. Those are the rules of God. The things that change are like, well, don't eat fish, or don't eat meat on Friday. Don't eat pork. Things like that, social things that change. And today, Baha'u'llah says, unify, unify, unify. Be one unit of mankind. You're all the same. You're all created by the same God. He gave you all the same love, the same virtues. So that's what's important, the most important thing. So the main principle is that oneness. We must unite as humanity if we're going to survive. We're not going to survive going on the way things are going on. But we as Baha'is don't look at an Armageddon. We don't look at a destruction of the earth. The end of times is the end of the way in which we were living and the beginning of a more godly civilization here on earth. Jesus Christ said in his Lord's Prayer to create that better world, to create a heaven on earth. And we think that we're helping to fulfill that. And it's a matter of people. The more people that believe, as you do and as we do, to be kind to each other and really believe it. Don't just say it on Sunday and then go home and do whatever you want to do, but really believe it. Then the world will change, because you got to change the hearts. And that's what Baha'u'llah said. I'm here to change the hearts of men. So, how do we get to this world religion? Well, I mentioned that we progress through progressive revelations. God sends what we call manifestations. They manifest God. Why are all these prophets like Jesus and Muhammad, Baha'u'llah, the Bab, why are they all treated so badly? Why are they all persecuted, some killed? God's trying to show us how we should act under similar situations. If you go to the country of Iran right now, which is where this faith started, in Persia, 1844, the Bab declared that he was of God, and he gave some proofs that proved to the person that found him that this is true. At the end, he was shot in the chest. They hung him up with another person that said, I want to die with you. They hung him in front of the Bab. They hung him up and they shot him with 270 guns. And when the smoke cleared, the Bab was gone. Where did he go? They found him back in the cell writing, because when they came to get him, he says, I have just a little bit more to write. They took him anyway. He was bound and determined to finish that. But we don't speak of miracles. We're not talking about having to do these unworldly miracles to be considered a prophet. But then they took him out and they ended up shooting him. But that's what happened to him. Then Baha'u'llah, he was kind of like John the Baptist for Baha'u'llah. He said that God is going to manifest this person, and this person was Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah declared his mission in 1863. And he tells about how he was in prison. They put him in a prison under the street in an old sewer duct. And that was a prison that they put prisoners in. And he was in that prison for a long time, chains across his neck and on his shoulder. And he suffered the rest of his life from the pains of those things because he has a human body. But while he was there, he said that he felt the wafting of the Spirit move down his body. And he was talking to the Archangel Michael. And he was told then that he was what he was supposed to do, that he was this manifestation. Before that, he was just a really, really nice guy. He had all the qualities, but he hadn't declared yet. So these manifestations of God are divine. They have the divine Spirit of God. Now, Baha'u'llah said that he was the one in which all was waiting for. And that includes Christ's coming. He said that he was here to change, to rebuild humankind, to change civilization as we knew it. And he was not martyred, but he was imprisoned for years and years. He was sent to Akka, as was mentioned in the writings. Akka was the worst prison in the world that they knew of at that particular time. And it was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, of course, was Turkey, and they controlled all that Middle East section, all of that Middle East. And they put him in that prison. And much of his writings were written from that prison or from the town in which the prison was in, because he was also imprisoned in governor's houses and things like that. And we don't know really who or what God is. We know what God has done. We know that God or Allah or whatever name you want to give him, that he created the universe. It didn't just happen. Something was there to make it happen. And like a carpenter, a woodworker, making a table or making a chair, he's creating that. The chair, the table, doesn't understand him, doesn't know him. He's the creator. And it's much the same as God in us. We can't know the true essence of God. How do we learn that true essence of God? We learn that true essence of God through the manifestations that he sends. They manifest God here on earth so that we can get an idea the virtues, the values, the character of God. And we try to live that. Of course, none of us will ever make it, but we try hard. And that's what makes for a good civilization. There's only one God. He's an unknowable essence. He is the creator and absolute ruler of the universe. How do we know they're manifestations? All manifestations bring a book. We got the Bible from Christ, the Quran from Muhammad, the Torah from Moses, and from Baha'u'llah. We have the Kitab-i Aqdas as his most holy book, but he's written hundreds of books, thousands and thousands of what they call tablets. He'd send to people to answer questions or whatever. We basically have the answer to everything, even doctors. He says, find a doctor that you can trust that is intelligent, that you feel is of value, and then follow what that doctor says. So we had Abraham. He headed the Hebrews. He was from Canaan. He was a monotheistic believer. His dad actually made idols that people worshiped. You know, they worshiped the sun, they worshiped the moon, they worshiped water, all these things. He made idols for that. So Abraham had to go against what his father was doing to teach monotheism, to teach the one God. And in the book of Abraham, we have Moses. He was the Jewish faith. He basically gave laws. The 10 Commandments we still follow today. That came from the dispensation of Moses. Christ, the Christians, he taught love. He taught kindness. He taught us to live together. Many, many, many city communities were built with the belief of Jesus Christ throughout the early decades and into the Middle Ages. Then we had Muhammad, the Islam faith. He united the tribes of Arabia, all the tribes in the Middle East, basically. He united them. He united them. And from the Muhammad faith, civilization started developing nations. All these little city-states in what is now called Italy became Italy. The Iberian Peninsula, Portugal. So that's the basis of what came out of that, and people learned to love one another and so on and so forth. Muhammad, the Islam faith, I already mentioned that. Bob and Baha'u'llah, they taught the unity of humanity, the oneness. The oneness. Don't kill your brother. He's you. He's the same as you. He's created by God. Now, that doesn't mean we're all exactly identical, because we all have our own individual thoughts. But that's what that belief was all about. So a unity of humanity, a oneness of humanity. Baha'u'llah, he was our latest. In Revelations, it mentioned glory many, many, many times. In the glory, he will come in the glory of God, in God's glory. Well, Baha'u'llah in Arabic means the glory of God. So that's kind of one of the ways we know that Baha'u'llah is a manifestation of God. It mentions glory in the Bible itself over 2,000 times, if you take the Old Testament, the New Testament, and all of that. So I got to kind of cut it because we're getting toward the end here. I just want to say that what we do is we're an active faith. We believe you have to take your faith and bring it out into the community and be active. So the Universal House of Justice has guided us through, and they gave us practical ways in which to bring about the rebuilding of civilization, the rebuilding of our human society. Children's classes. Well, children are important. If you don't raise a child to believe in God, if you don't raise a child to have the virtues of kindness and justice and these things, they're not, where are they going to get it from? Out of the air? Sometimes they're lucky and they do come across people that help teach them those items, but it's very important. So we have children's classes. Then we have a junior youth program. Now the junior youth program is for basically your junior high kids, 12 to 15 years old. In that 12 to 15 years old, kids are maturing. They're in, like what I said, the state of humanity is in right now. They're fighting it. You know, what does it mean to be an adult? Well, am I worth anything? Can I do anything as an adult? And so these junior youth classes actually give the children the choice. What would you do if you wanted this town to be better? What would you do if you wanted your neighborhood to be more perfect? The children these junior youth children come up with what they think they should do. Sometimes they work in aged homes. Sometimes they work cleaning up the beach. Sometimes they work in a food bank. We brought some up and they actually served food to the seniors. And then we have devotionals, because prayers are the most important thing to set the environment that you're trying to create. So we have them on Zoom and we have them live. And then we have what we call RUI classes, and they're just classes that teach you, like the first one teaches you how to pray. What's life after death? So on and so forth. And then we have a series of books that go through the various aspects of civilization. And that's what we do. And I just would like to read one quote from Baha'u'llah's son, Abdul Baha, who he gave the interpretation of the faith to. He says, turn to Abdul Baha, he will tell you that. The Abdul Baha means service of glory. All the manifestations of God bring the same light. They only differ in degree, not in reality. The truth is one. The light is the same, though the lamp may be different. We must look at the light, not at the lamp. If we accept the light in one, we must accept the light in all. All agree because all are the same. The teachings is ever the same. It is only the outward forms that change. Thank you very much.